The movie starts in the US with a guy named Robert. He works as a janitor at a big shopping mall. We find out he lives alone after his wife passed away, and he has no kids. We see his morning routine. He wakes up, eats breakfast, gets dressed, and takes the bus to work. During lunch, he usually sits in the cafeteria with a young guy named Ralphie, who's applying for a security guard job and has a test coming up in a week. But Ralphie's overweight, so he asks Robert to help him with a diet plan to lose weight before the test. Robert puts him on a strict routine and gets him to work out too. At night, Robert always goes to a little cafe where he reads his favorite books. The next day, same routine. At the cafe, he runs into a girl named Terry. He doesn't really know her, but they're both regulars. Terry is Russian. She works in prostitution. Slavy is a Russian guy running a human trafficking ring in America. He forces Russian girls into this life. Suddenly, Terry's phone rings. It's Slavy. He's waiting for her outside in the car to take her to a client. Terry doesn't want to go. She's tired of that life, but she's forced to leave anyway. Robert sees everything. He can tell she's not doing this by choice. He looks bothered. The next day, Robert goes back to the cafe. He finds Terry sitting there, sad, and her face is bruised. Clearly, she's been beaten. He sits with her and asks what happened, but she avoids the question. Robert suspects Slavy is behind it. He tells her she doesn't have to live like this, that no one has the right to force her into anything. But she tells him, that's easy to say. It's different when you're living it. Just then, she gets a call from Slavy, but she doesn't answer. Robert notices. Later that night, he walks her home. On the way, Slavy suddenly cuts them off with his car. He gets out, grabs Terry, hits her in front of Robert, throws her in the car, and then walks up to Robert, thinking he's just another customer. He hands him a business card and says, if you want someone prettier, give me a call. Robert takes the card, and Slavy drives off with Terry. Robert goes home, thinking about how to help her, how to set her free. He goes back to the cafe for 2 days straight, but Terry never shows up. He asks the waiter and finds out Terry's in the hospital. Someone beat her up badly. Robert goes to visit. He sees her unconscious in the ICU, with a girl crying next to her. He finds out the girl's name is Mandy, Terry's friend. He asks what happened. Mandy tells him Slavy beat Terry because she hit a client who tried to assault her. She says he always punishes the girls if they refuse clients. She also tells him that once, he even threw acid on a girl's face. Robert is furious after hearing that. He decides to save Terry. He finds out where Slavy hangs out, a restaurant, casino, and bar, all in one place. His office is upstairs. One night, Slavy arrives at the place, goes up to his office, and sits down with 4 of his men. They start talking business. Suddenly, Robert walks in on them. Robert pulls out the card Slavy gave him earlier, the one where he said to call if he ever wanted a girl for the night. Slavy pretends like he doesn't remember, but Robert tells him he's there for Terry. He calmly offers Slavy 9,800 to let her go and start a new life. Slavy and his men laugh. He says no one just walks away from his business. Robert walks toward the office door and quietly locks it. The men think he's lost his mind. I mean, who faces off against armed gangsters with no weapon? But Robert had been paying attention since the moment he walked in. He knew exactly who had what weapon and what objects around him could be used as tools. Suddenly, he attacks. He breaks one guy's arm, takes his gun, and points it at Slavy. He shoots Slavy in the neck and takes down the rest of the men, one by one, clean and fast. Once it's done, he walks over to the dying Slavy and says, "You're gonna die in 30 seconds, and Terry's gonna live a free life. You should have taken the money." Then he walks away and leaves him to die. The next night, a man named Teddy arrives at the airport. He's a sharp, professional Russian hitman working for Pushkin, a shady Russian businessman. The same guy Slavy was doing dirty work for in America. Teddy's here to investigate Slavy's murder. At the airport, he's picked up by 3 corrupt cops, Masters, Peterson, and Ramar. They work with the Russian mob, helping them with drugs, weapons, trafficking, and laundering in exchange for protection. They take him to the crime scene inside the restaurant office and hand him a file with photos of the bodies and all the details. Teddy examines the pictures closely and immediately realizes this was done by someone highly trained, a true professional. He orders the officers to pull all the surveillance footage from inside and around the restaurant and to start digging for answers. Fast. 2 days later, Teddy tracks down Mandy, Terry's friend. He questions her, but she lies and says she doesn't know where Terry is. Teddy senses the lie but doesn't call her out on it yet. Later, Teddy calls Pushkin and tells him that, based on his early findings, the Irish or Italians might be behind Slavy's death. After that, he heads straight to Mandy's apartment. He confronts her, saying he spoke with the other girls. They told him she and Terry were very close. Mandy gets nervous and confesses Terry was beaten badly by Slavy and ended up in the hospital. While she was there, Mandy saw a black man asking about her. She doesn't know his name, but remembers his face. Teddy listens, then strangles her to death. That night, Teddy meets with the 3 cops again. He tells them he found a black man on the restaurant cameras. Someone who entered right after Slavy. He shows them the footage. It's Robert. He also says Mandy confirmed that a black man was at the hospital asking about Terry, which makes him certain this is the guy they're looking for. Teddy eventually finds Robert's address and shows up at his place. Robert opens the door. Teddy pretends to be a detective and starts asking questions about the night Slavy was murdered. He says, "What were you doing at the restaurant around the time of the incident?" Robert confidently tells Teddy that he was having dinner at the restaurant at the time and doesn't know anything about what he's asking. Teddy shows him a picture of Mandy and asks if he knows her, but Robert denies it. Teddy feels like Robert is lying, then walks away. Robert starts to suspect that Teddy isn't actually a cop, so he stops him before he leaves and asks for his card in case he remembers anything. Teddy dodges the request and says he doesn't have any cards with him, then leaves. Robert becomes certain Teddy's not a cop, especially because of his Russian accent. He figures he must be working for Slavy and is here for revenge. From that moment on, Robert starts to be extra cautious. Teddy begins watching Robert and taking photos of him. He even digs into Robert's background and finds out he's just a regular guy working 40 hours a week at a mall, never been in the army or police. But Teddy isn't convinced. He believes Robert is well trained and that the mall job is just a cover. One night, Robert is sitting in a cafe reading and drinking coffee when a guy dressed as a worker walks in and orders a sandwich. Thanks to his sharp eye, Robert notices the guy's hands are clean, not the hands of a real laborer. When the man realizes Robert has figured him out, he pulls a gun on him. Calmly, Robert hits him in the stomach with his book, cuts the power to the cafe. Knowing Teddy and Masters are watching from a car outside, then walks right out, takes a photo of them inside the car with his phone and disappears. Teddy and the corrupt cops start searching for Robert in the streets, but he's already gone. Later that night, they break into his apartment to kill him, but he's not there. They search through his stuff while Robert watches and films them from an apartment across the street. Teddy quickly realizes Robert is watching them, so they rush out and drive off. Robert captures their license plate to find out who they are. At this point, he's sure they've figured out he's the one who killed Slavy. The next day, Robert goes to a CIA safe house and meets Brian and Susan, old friends and former agents. That's when we learn Robert was once a secret intelligence officer who retired after his wife died, which explains his combat skills. Robert asks Susan for help. He tells her about killing Slavy and shows her a picture of Teddy. Susan tells him that Teddy is a professional killer and used to be the head of political police in Russia. Now he works for a businessman named Pushkin, who's involved in arms dealing, drugs, and sex trafficking, all under the cover of an oil import company. Susan tells Robert that killing Pushkin's men was a mistake, and Teddy won't let it slide. She shows him photos of 2 corrupt cops who were found dead in a car trunk the night before, most likely killed by Teddy. She warns him that Masters is probably next. Robert thanks them and heads home. Later, he finds out where Masters is hiding. He's scared and staying at home. Robert sneaks into his garage and sets up a trap. Masters comes out when he hears a car alarm. Suddenly, Robert appears behind him, shoves him into the car, and locks him inside. He had already placed a tank of toxic gas in the car. Robert turns on the gas and starts choking Masters, who's locked inside the car and can't escape. After a bit of torture, Masters gives in and confesses everything he knows about Teddy. Robert's first move is to force him to take him to the Russians' big storage facility, the place where they keep all the dirty money from their shady operations. Robert pretends to be a cop and walks in with Masters. Inside, they find a bunch of women counting endless stacks of cash. That's where they meet Andrei and his men, who also work for Pushkin. Robert calmly asks Andrei to hand over the place peacefully, but Andrei refuses and pulls a gun on him. Quick as lightning, Robert disarms him and forces them all to give up their weapons. Then he ties them up. Robert lets the women go, giving each of them a stack of cash as a reward and tells them not to come back. Then he cuffs Masters to a pipe in the warehouse and makes him call the cops to report the money, telling him this is finally something good he's doing. He also forces him to reveal where he kept the fake documents he was planning to use if his corruption got exposed. Masters agrees, makes the call, and Robert leaves for the bank. At the bank, Robert opens Master's safety deposit box using the key he took from him, pretending to be his police partner. Inside, he finds a fake passport, a flash drive, and important documents, so he takes them all. Meanwhile, the cops arrive at the warehouse and find the huge stash of cash, Andrei's men tied up, and Masters cuffed and helpless. That night, Robert finds out Teddy is at a bar. He goes there, sits with him, and tells him and his boss they've got one last chance to back off from trying to kill him, because no one can take him down. He hands him a piece of paper with a phone number and says, "If you change your mind, give me a call," then walks away. Back home, Robert plugs in the flash drive and finds suspicious bank transfers, documents on money laundering, sex trafficking, arms dealing, and paperwork exposing Pushkin and his corrupt cops in the US. He sends everything to the police as evidence against Pushkin and his whole network in America. Among the files, he notices photos of Russian cargo ships owned by Pushkin. That night, he heads to the docks and blows up the ships and the surrounding area. When Pushkin hears about it, he loses it and calls Teddy, yelling about the losses. Teddy calms him down and says he hired a team of elite killers who will handle Robert once and for all. Teddy decides to storm the mall where Robert works, along with the killers. They take Ralphie, who's now a security guard, and 4 other workers hostage. Teddy calls the number Robert gave him and says he's got 30 minutes to show up, or his coworkers die. Robert agrees. The gang tracks Robert's phone and finds him on a bus, so they set up snipers. But when they stop the bus, it's empty. Robert had just left the phone there to throw them off. Meanwhile, Robert has already entered the mall unnoticed. He sneaks into the security room and plays music through the speakers. The gang gets tense and orders Ralphie to take them to the source of the sound. As soon as they get to the security room, Robert ambushes one of them, kills him, and hides the body. Then he and Ralphie set a trap for another one and take him out too. Robert tells Ralphie to escape with the others through the service exit. After that, he cuts the power and locks the electronic doors. Teddy and his men get nervous and start searching for Robert in the dark. Robert suddenly shows up behind one of them and hangs him using a makeshift noose. Then he appears behind another and kills him with a power drill. One of the gang members starts shooting randomly inside the mall, but Robert shows up and attacks him. The guy is super strong, and they get into a brutal fight. Robert gets knocked to the ground, and just when it seems like the killer's about to finish him off, Robert keeps fighting back. He quickly grabs a piece of broken glass from the floor and stabs him in the neck, killing him. Then we see Ralph come back after his coworkers ran off. He wants to help Robert, who's hurt and exhausted, and he suggests they escape together. But Teddy spots them and starts shooting, hitting Ralph. Robert tells him to go turn on the lights from the electrical room. Teddy follows the trail of blood and figures out where Ralph is hiding. Teddy reaches Ralph at the electrical room and shoots at him, but Ralph fires back and hits him. That's when Robert appears and shoots Teddy without any mercy, finally killing him. 3 days later, Robert travels to Russia. He sneaks into Pushkin's mansion, catches him off guard in the bathroom, and kills him, taking down the last person who was a threat to his life. He goes back to the US, returns to his normal life and job, and meets up with Thierry. Her life has changed for the better, and now she can see a future for herself. That makes Robert happy, knowing he fought so she could be free. And that's how the first movie ends. If you liked the summary, let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next summary.